I'm James Ealing. This is Secret Sauce, the restaurant marketing podcast, and we are talking about episode 168, Restaurant Marketing Trends for 2023, Part 3.
Some restaurants are quiet, lose money, and the owner works 70 hours a week. Other restaurants are busy, profitable, and the owners work a few hours a day. What's the difference? They have a secret sauce. Join James from Marketing for Restaurants as he helps you come up with your recipe for restaurant success. Your secret sauce.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. No surprises here. This is the third and final episode in our trio of podcasts that are looking at restaurant marketing trends. I have saved what I think are the two most important trends that we are going to see over the next, one is definitely for the next 12 months, one is going to be enduring. I think we've covered a lot of ground in the last two podcasts. We've looked at the big macro factors that are driving a lot of these trends. And then we've gone through, we've got some food things, we've got some economic things, we've looked at vegetarianism and flexitarianism. The big changes in delivery and pickup, we talked quite a bit about that. Comfort food, labour, just the difficulty that people have got in trying to get people to work in their restaurants, huge, and that is global. So automation and a team-first approach to building a restaurant that is going to be sustainable because you've got people to work in it. You're not going to be able to do it all yourself. Then a couple of market-driven ones. So looking at that polarization of the market, those people who've got lots of money and are prepared to spend it on something a bit special, those people who don't have a lot of money, and what is it that they're going to be looking for, and how are you going to be able to cater for those people? With these ones, really important to look at your local market. These are hyper-local components for every restaurant, and that's why there's a different answer for marketing questions for all of the restaurants around the world. You can be talking to one restaurant and another restaurant 5 miles away will have vastly different problems with vastly different solutions. Really important that you're out and about trying to understand what is going on in your market and with your customers. Then we looked at marketing heavy restaurants. What do I mean by that? A restaurant that actually has a marketing plan. And I said that we're going to come back to that, and I think it's important, but we're going to talk about a couple of things before we get to that. So our second last big trend, and I really do think that this is going to be huge for those that pick it up, artificial intelligence. Now, I've had this conversation a few times. People are going and saying, we run a restaurant. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, what I want to do is I want to give you a couple of examples that are very, very, very much going to make a huge amount of sense for what it is that you are doing in your restaurant today. There's a couple of tools that we are using internally to do a range of things. So the first one, this is something, it's been my guilty pleasure for quite a while now, Midjourney. I love Midjourney. So what this does is it takes your text and it interprets it, and then it takes what you've asked for and it turns it into a picture. Why is this going to be useful for you? Well, if you do marketing, a hint you should do, it is really easy to create artwork now for your restaurant. Much of the artwork that I'm doing for podcast show notes now is done with Midjourney. I'm doing it directly, which I think is really good because I can sit there, I can control the output, not as well as when I'm using a graphic designer. Having said that, the capabilities of Midjourney have increased dramatically. I've been using it for probably 3 or 4 months now. So this is January 2023. I got on board relatively early. I would be creating 100 images a month at least. And I think I pay about $10 a month for it. So it's incredibly cheap. And the big thing is that, so we produce a number of podcasts here. Much of that artwork now is just being done by me. And then internally, our team just put our logos on it and the title of the podcast. That is the first thing that you can do. So you can use it for artwork. The second thing is you can use it for inspiration. And there was an article a little while ago about someone who asked for a whole series of fancy donuts. And so Midjourney, I think he was using Midjourney. There's a few of them out there. DALL-E 2 is another one. I like Midjourney. It's free if you're only going to use a couple of images. I've got the basic account because it's incredibly powerful and I'm saving money and our workflows are quicker now. So someone wanted some photos of AI-generated donuts. Now, the artist who did this, should we call them artists? Am I an artist? I don't know. They are my creation, though, I think, technically, which is good and exciting. He came up with a post that he put up, some donuts for Hanukkah, and pretty amazing images. Now, very difficult to actually create this, but from an inspiration point of view, you can see there's lots of really, really interesting things. And I'm sure that there are talented donut makers out there who would be able to create these in some sort of fashion, use that as the starting point for some pretty amazing donuts. When you create something that looks half as good as these images, then wow, you're really out there. You're going to be you're giving your marketing team something to really talk about. You've got the chance of having something that's going to go viral. You've got the chance of, having your little donut bakery going from selling X amount to 5 or 10 times that amount and having an hour-long queue out the door. I've spoken to multiple people who've had this happen, and the big difference between them and the 99.999% of people who don't have that happen to them is that they're actually out there trying. They're actually trying to come up with interesting things that are going to capture people's imaginations. Wow, you can certainly do that with Midjourney now. Super cool. We don't use it for inspiration. We use it for actually creating marketing. So some of the artwork for these episodes has already been done, and I've been feeding that information in there, and it's just quick. We had a graphic designer Rod, he was amazing. He's done some of the best artwork that we've ever done. He was quite expensive. We had him on full-time. We didn't have enough work for a full-time graphic designer. So we would often give him little projects. And so he reimagined Salvador Dali's Persistence of Memory. He did that image, but recreated it with some of my favorite dishes from Lume when Sean Quaid was there. Now, that's a very specific brief. There was a little bit of backwards and forwards. He's a very talented graphic designer, so it looked super awesome. Having said that, there was probably about 30 or 40 hours worth of time in that, which we wouldn't have done it was only because we had a bit of spare time for him. Now, I could create something very, very quickly, nowhere near as detailed in what I wanted, but I could get something very detailed that's going to be close to what I want. That's the big difference. I think this is really, really powerful for people who want to be able to create amazing looking pieces of art as a part of their marketing campaign. The next component of that is ChatGPT. This is a lot newer. I've only been on board ChatGPT for probably a week now, and I want to give you an example of a scenario where you could use artificial intelligence to create something. Now, just imagine that you have gone down to the fish market and there's a lot of lobster there, and so you've been able to pick up some lobsters cheap, and so this is going to be a special. Now, what are you going to do? Okay, so here's the thing. I typed into ChatGPT, create a recipe for lobster that is highly creative. Now, that's all I gave it. That's it. This is the answer that I got back, and I'm going to post this in the show notes, so make sure you check it out. Sure thing. Here's a recipe for a grilled lobster with mango salsa and coconut curry butter. Ingredients: 2 live lobsters, 1.5 to 2 pounds each, 1 mango, peeled and diced, half a red bell pepper diced, quarter of a red onion diced, 1 jalapeno, blah, 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 blah. Instructions: in a small bowl, combine the mango, red bell pepper, red onion, jalapeno, cilantro, and lime juice. Season with salt and pepper and taste. Set aside. There's the rest of the instructions there. Now, this was done by a robot who's got no concept of lobster, no concept of salsa, no concept of taste, no concept of any of that stuff. But what he has done is created a recipe for grilled lobster with mango salsa and coconut curry butter. I've got a few things to say about that. The first thing is that Like, I'm getting really hungry just reading that out because it looks pretty amazing. Now, I did Google it, and there is a thing, grilled lobster and mango salsa. But that's okay because you've come home with 20 lobsters and you're trying to think of something different. I think this, just as words, grilled lobster with mango salsa and coconut curry butter, boom. That is a restaurant menu excitement hour. And I think that you would sell out of that very, very quickly. Throw a photo up of it once you've done it, and that's the kind of thing that you put on Facebook, Instagram. That's the kind of thing that's really, really going to go viral. That's the kind of thing that is going to draw people in to your restaurant as long as you've got all of the other bits and pieces. Now, there's a big drawback with ChatGPT and all of these artificial intelligence kind of applications. They don't know what they're talking about. Okay, so big asterisks here. Not a chef. I probably know more about cooking lobster than ChatGPT, and I don't know anything about that. No, I don't think I've ever had a crack. But you've probably got a chef. So you're going to be able to look at this. You're going to be able to see the bits where it's made a mistake. But you're going to be able to take that inspiration and you're going to be able to turn that into a lobster meal that you're going to put in front of customers. They're going to go, that was amazing. So I think that we are going to see a lot more of people using this for inspiration from a recipe point of view. And I was pretty loose with this. Create a recipe for lobster that is highly creative. I could have said the most creative lobster recipe. I could have said lobster and banana and, I don't know, something else in there. What is it that you've been able to get really cheaply? What is it that you're overstocked with? What is it that you're about to throw out? What are the things that you want to use in a recipe? Combine all of those things into what it is that you want to ask ChatGPT and throw it at it. Now, if you've heard of ChatGPT, you'll probably have heard all sorts of dire predictions. I think it's really exciting. You can do some really interesting things here. How can I improve the culture of my restaurant? You could ask it that. And I've got to tell you, so we've been asking some of these questions, and I've asked questions in areas where I am really where I think that I'm an expert, and the answers aren't too bad. If you're trying to do something and you don't have the expertise to be able to do that, ChatGPT is going to be one of those things that you can lean into. Really quite interesting. Now, the other thing that is going to make a really big difference, and I know it will because I know I talk to restaurant owners and they always say that this is the thing that kills them. And you know what? It may kill us. It may kill us. And that is creating content for your marketing. So I was using ChatGPT and I thought, you know what? Let's have a little bit of a play with this. And so I typed into ChatGPT, write me a viral post for LinkedIn about leadership. And this is what I got. Leadership isn't about being the boss or having all the answers. It's about empowering those around you to be their best selves and achieve their goals. A true leader creates a culture of trust, accountability, and growth, and is always willing to learn and adapt. Great leaders don't just talk about their vision, they make it a reality through their actions and by inspiring others to take action. They also understand that leadership is a team effort and know how to delegate tasks and responsibilities effectively. So, if you want to be a successful leader, start by being a great follower. Learn from those around you and take time to understand their strengths and weaknesses. And remember, the best leaders are those who lead by example and constantly strive to improve themselves and their teams. I hope this post inspires you to be a great leader. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so I posted that on LinkedIn. The only thing that I did to moderate that was I did two things. One, I put some hashtags in there because, that's going to help a little bit. And there was no great thinking there. I just put in team, growth, leaders, leadership, GPT chat, and Midjourney. The other thing that I did was I commented on it. Interesting to see how this goes. I asked ChatGPT to write a viral LinkedIn post for me. Now, the other thing that I did do was your marketing on LinkedIn and a lot of platforms, you need at least an image today, if not a video. So, and AI video is coming. I've seen some work that Facebook have been doing it. AI video will be here sooner or later. But I went to Midjourney and I just put in leadership. Mine is stylized 1000 because that's the way that I like to create my images. And it created an image of some business people walking behind a massive lion. So, and I posted that. I got 8 comments, 1 repost, which I thought was interesting, and 1,670 impressions, which, you know, in the scale of things, that's about an average post for me. So it's not a huge post, but it's certainly not my worst post either. And that was created very, very quickly with cut and paste. So what is ChatGPT going to be able to do? Create a Facebook post for me about our new pizza special, which is 50% off on Tuesday night. The critical thing with this to remember is, so ChatGPT, I've been using it for 2 weeks. Midjourney, I've been using for 4 months. I think they're on version 4 of it. And the difference between the work that I was doing 4 months ago, where it was just my hobby. I like to create artwork. Back then, the images weren't great. It wasn't very good at faces. It was quite good at doing dark horror type stuff. Now it is worlds apart from those early days. When you project forward with where we are going to be, this is going to be incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. You should be thinking about this. And if you're not thinking about it, be working with people who are working with it, because I think there's a huge amount of value that's going to be able to come out from artificial intelligence for all small businesses. And that's just a couple of ways that you could do it in a restaurant. You could ask it how to increase the margin on your products, and it's probably going to come up with an answer. I'd like to think not as good as me, but it'll certainly be better than not asking that question. Now, that was the 10th in our top 10 marketing trends for 2023. I've got one more. I said that was the second last one, and that's because we always like to underpromise and overdeliver. Here is one, and just go for it. Trust me on this. Trust me on this. Price rises. You should put your prices up. You probably will have to put your prices up. Rent is going up because interest rates are going up. All of your inputs are going up. Electricity is going up. Gas is going up. You know, sometimes in huge jumps. Eye-popping jumps. Wages are going up. Everything that goes into your restaurant is going up. You need to put your prices up. And I think it is really prices up or die, because we are seeing, so in Australia, we're seeing inflation at, I think it's currently running at 7.9%. If you don't put your prices up, then you are really taking a 7.9% cut in revenue. How is that going to pan out in your business? Were you making 7.9%? Probably not. So prices are going to have to go up, and it's going to be prices up or die. Prices up or die for a couple of reasons. So firstly, coming out of COVID, we know that most restaurants aren't flush with cash. So those reserves, they were well and truly gone through in the first half of 2020. And so most people have been running on the smell of an oily rag. And that means that these kind of profitability and cash flow shocks, they are going to really impact restaurants. And so the restaurant industry as a whole is going to be more fragile in 2023. We know that, talking to restaurants and just the base economics of it. A lot of restaurants are going to go out of business. That means that there's going to be less competition, which means that you're going to be able to put your prices up. The other thing is that people are getting wage rises, and that means that they've got more money to spend, and they understand that we're in a high inflationary environment. So they're kind of expecting prices to go up. 3 stories. The first one, the place where I love to get my coffee. I've spoken about him before. Just a really nice husband and wife team. They've done it really tough because obviously in lockdown they weren't able to work. And they've got this massive big board at the back of the cafe with all of their prices on it. And I said, so when are we putting your prices up? And he said, I can't. I'll lose all my customers. And I said, you're charging $5 for a coffee. I think that I come here because this is the best coffee in Frankston. Of all of the ones that I tried, I prefer this one. And often when I'm up in the city, it'll be like, I wish I was having one of these coffees. So I really like your coffee. And I would be happy to pay $6.50. $7 is probably stretching the friendship there. But talking about going from $5 to $6.50, that's a 30% increase. It's kind of expected. Now, he doesn't need to put his prices up that much, but he is really quite scared about it. So I'm just going to keep harassing him about it because I don't want to see him go out of business. Second story was a restaurant that opened up near us. I thought that it was great food, went in there, ordered off the menu, and I was looking at the menu and I thought, I bet there's been no menu engineering. I bet there's been no costing done. And sure enough, they hadn't. They went out of business. The restaurant industry is a full contact sport, and these things like costing your menu, I would say generally you would cost your menu maybe once a year, maybe even less than that. Now, you should do it more often, but you could probably get away with it if you've done a good job of costing it. You can't do that anymore. And I think you probably need to be costing it at least every 3 months, just because some items that are seasonal, there's another flood in Australia. Now, we don't know how that's going to impact fresh produce, but it probably will. It's probably going to send up the price of something. If you're cooking with that, you're going to start having dramas. There is a potato, I won't go as far as saying famine, but there's a drought in potatoes in Australia. So fish and chip shops are really struggling because they are paying a fortune for potatoes, something that was their big high profit margin item. That's no more. They're really struggling with profitability because of the fact that potatoes are costing them a lot more. You need to be thinking about that. You need to be quite dynamic about the pricing that you're charging. Last one, it's the story that we started with. Noma is closing. They're charging in Australian money $1,000 to eat at the restaurant. They still can't do it profitably. If they can't do it profitably, charging $1,000 per seat, then that's got to be a big warning for everyone to be thinking about costs and the price that you are charging. So that's it. I won't go through all of them again. There are 11 trends that are in there. Today we talked about AI. Have a go with it. Both of them are free to play. I'll include links to them so you can sign up and have a bit of a play with it. See what they're capable of doing. Get an idea of what their capabilities are, and that way you can work out if it's going to work in your restaurant or not. I think that they probably will. Prices. Put your prices up. Really important. People are expecting it. Do what you have to be able to keep your restaurant open. Now, it's interesting because some of the feedback that I get is, some of these trends, they're just really marketing best practices. Particularly, running a marketing heavy restaurant. And you know what? It is, but there's a big component that I put these in for a very specific reason, and that is we live in a Darwinian world. And what I mean by that is there are some restaurants that close down and there are some restaurants that thrive. Now, some restaurants close down because they're actually no good at food. Some restaurants close down because they shouldn't be ever running a small business. Some restaurants close down, though, because despite having amazing food, despite being really, really cheap, and that's not a good thing, despite providing great experiences and great value, they just run the best restaurant that no one's ever heard of. And this is the real tragedy in it that we see. In the old days, and I'm talking pre-COVID, you could muddle through. You could have your little core of really, really engaged customers who ordered from you once a week, and you could get by. And you would lose a couple of customers for various reasons. Maybe they moved out of the area. Lots of reasons why you lose customers. Doesn't have to be about the food. And they would slowly pick up more regular customers. So they never really grew, but they never really went backwards. I always say, though, that the restaurant industry, it's a full contact sport. It's not for the faint-hearted. You need to be bringing your A game every time you open the doors, because of the fact that people have gone through all of their cash reserves, because of the fact that we've all gone through COVID for the last 2.5 years. There just is that fragility in the industry, the fragility in the marketplace, the lack of labor. There is a almost perfect wave of reasons why you'd have to be absolutely crazy to be running a restaurant in this day and age. And that's why some of those best practices, some of those things that you should be thinking about, like running a marketing-enabled restaurant, I think they're going to become absolutely critical. The Indian restaurant near me that I ordered, so today's Thursday, tomorrow night, I would traditionally order Indian. I don't know what I'm going to order tomorrow night. We actually had Korean last week. We've kind of gone away from Indian, not because we've gone off our Indian restaurant, because they closed. And look, I thought that their food was pretty good. It wasn't the cheapest, but it wasn't the most expensive, but it wasn't great, but it was pretty good. And critically, it was the best in the area. I would have been happy to pay a little bit more. We ordered quite a lot of food because we'd ordered 2 or 3 meals for the week because we love Indian food. Now, I would every now and then, it's interesting because I was a customer and I was also every now and then I would help them with the restaurant because I got to know them mainly because I was a customer. But they were using Frollo, our free restaurant online ordering system. And so I would help them go through that data because remember, we've got our restaurant loyalty graph that we put into that and now in Restolo. And the point of the restaurant loyalty graph is it helps you identify the number of customers that as I say, moving customers to the right. So getting more and more customers who've ordered not once, but twice, not twice, but 4 times, not 4 times, but 10 times, and then 25 times. As you see that bar grow, you know that you're doing a good job because there's something that's resonating with customers. Now, we can talk for hours about why is it that a customer would buy from you, but you're doing good stuff. We can take that as a given if people are coming back multiple times. They had that small core of regular users, people who we had ordered well in excess of 25 times. In fact, I think it was over 100 times. And we weren't the largest orderer there. There were people who were much more faithful to them. So probably about once a month we would order. Friday night's takeout night for us, we would order from someone else. There were people who were ordering twice a week from them. The value of those customers is huge. We'd spent thousands of dollars with them, but they went out of business. A couple of things, they couldn't get staff because they couldn't pay the wages that were required to attract staff in this day and age. And they were tired. And they were tired because husband and wife team, great couple, they were working 60-hour weeks, and that they would bring their kids in and the kids would sit behind the bar and do their homework. I always thought that was really sad. Could they not afford a babysitter? No. They should have been running the kind of restaurant where not both of them needed to be in the restaurant at once. But they never did. They weren't a marketing-enabled restaurant. I would have loved to have built their website, but we didn't. I would have loved to have run some Facebook campaigns, but we never did. I don't know why. They had they found someone who did a website for them. It was pretty awful. So they had people using Frollo a lot. There wasn't a large number of people. This is really, really interesting on desktop. So my wife would order because I like watching people. I'm a bit weird. I like watching people order food from restaurants using online ordering systems. She would do it on her laptop and I think, I like ordering on my laptop too. I only do it on a phone when I have to. There's a lot of people who do it on their phone. On a phone and on a laptop, you couldn't actually see the icon to click on Frollo. You had to change the screen resolution a bit because it wasn't mobile responsive, and then it would pop up and then you could click on it and then you could order. That mistake there, and I told them about more than once, that mistake I think would have cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. They were getting a moderate number of people going to their website, not huge, but they'd had that website for about 4 years. And if you think about the number of people who go to the average restaurant website, so we know that the average restaurant website gets, about 1,000 people a month to it. Theirs didn't get anywhere near that because they didn't have any SEO. Would have loved to have done some SEO for them. Probably around the 300 to 400s. That's 3,500 visits to the website every year. Many of their conversion rate to Frollo was quite low, and it should have probably been double that. They would have picked up a lot more repeat customers, but they never did. There was lots of things that they could have done. They could have been a lot more successful, but they never did them. It's the same with putting your prices up. I know that the restaurants that don't put their prices up, they are at great risk of closing this year because they are just going to have all of the problems that you have when you're running a business that doesn't have the resources that it needs, doesn't have the staff, doesn't have the ability to pay overtime, doesn't have the ability to pay suppliers on time. all of those sort of things are going to create a crescendo of problems, and those restaurants will close. The restaurants putting their prices up, they're going to benefit of, one, increased profitability, a better ability to deliver the product when and where it's required. And I'm not talking about home delivery. I'm just talking about putting some food on the plates who've come into your restaurant. And they are going to benefit because there's going to be a lot of restaurants that are going to close. It's going to be a really tough year, people. And I think that without doing things like marketing, without having a think about what it is that you're trying to do and who you're trying to do it for, you're fighting with one hand behind your back. And this year is not the year to be doing that. We've had too many years where people have struggled, people have fought with one hand behind their back. Now, this year is the year to come out punching. This is the year to be laser focused on costs, profitability, and your customers. They're the big three things that you want to be thinking about. The trends that I've come up with, look, it really is just to try and help educate you to what it is that you need to be thinking about. Costs, profitability, and your customers. You know what? If you just do those three things, you're going to be better off. If you were destined to always survive this year, you'll do better. If it's a bit line ball, you should be okay. And you know what? Maybe you might just be able to scrape through with a restaurant that has been struggling for a while. And you know what? For the ones that are new, hey, welcome to the game, but definitely come out punching. Be as aggressive as you need to be in thinking about how you're going to run that business, because it is a full contact sport. And I have seen too many people waste too much of their lives in businesses that they, at the end of it, they haven't been able to sell. And that, I think, is a real tragedy. So there's plenty in here that's going to be able to increase your profitability. Plenty. Have a think about it. Go back, listen to them again. Now, the other thing is, if you did think that there was anything good in here, that you do think that my crazy trends are bang on the money, like, share our post if you see them on Facebook. Tell all your mates about the podcast. That word of mouth really does help us, and it helps us around the world. So yes, where there is adversity, this is the big opportunity. There are going to be less restaurants at the end of the year than there was at the start. And if I'm wrong with that, the majority of those new restaurants are going to be new ones, and they're not going to it's going to take them 12 months to sort out what they're doing. We've also seen those guys who are new to the industry who've got really no idea what they're doing. This is the time to shine. I am quite excited about it, and I know that we're going to do some amazing things with our customers because they're passionate about making it work this year. And that thing, if you've got that passion and you've got the time to be able to focus on those things, just think about your restaurant as a business. Try and get yourself out of the day-to-day grind of it. It'll be good. It'll be fine. We'll all be fine. So yes, let's end it on a positive note, because I'm excited. There's going to be less restaurants. I want our customers to be the survivors. And I'm super passionate about it. So continue listening to the podcast. Let me know what's working for you, what isn't working for you, what your problems are. Hit me up on LinkedIn or Facebook. Always happy to have a bit of a chat. Yeah, that's about it. Now, please, you go out. It's 2023, start of the year. You go out and have a busy week. Alrighty, bye.
Want more customers for your restaurant, cafe or takeout? Every month, our marketing tools and information are used by thousands of restaurant owners just like you to help them find more customers and turn them into repeat customers. All of our tools and information is designed specifically for restaurant owners. We know you don't have a lot of time to spend marketing or learning complicated procedures, so our tools are quick and easy to use. If you're looking to increase your revenue and profits or want to work less hours, check out marketingforrestaurants.com.